When given the choice to be right or kind, always choose kind. I haven't prepared for this really at all. I was going to, and I had some things to think about because this topic was introduced to me, not formally in any way, but someone just shared, like someone had this as a status, and then a friend shared it in our group chat, and then started talking about it, and I made a couple comments, but I was crazy busy today, and I don't really recall much of what was said, and it wasn't like discussed by everyone, and it wasn't like a horribly long conversation, but maybe I'll be able to reach into my mind and pull some stuff out that I was thinking earlier, but this is kind of a little more off the cuff than I've been doing lately. Anyway, enough of an awkward intro. So, blanket phrases are a problem for a lot of reasons, but I find especially like faux inspirational, positive, optimistic blanket phrases are super annoying to me. I kind of feel like Donnie Darko right now when the phys ed teacher is going on the spectrum of fear and love, and those are the only two, even though it's a spectrum, those are the only two things that apparently are your motives, your actions are motivated by, are either fear or love, and place it on the, anyway, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what's up, but if you don't, then go watch Donnie Darko, because it's an excellent, amazing, fantastic movie. Anyway, like it says, what was the quote again? When given the choice to be right or kind, choose kind. It's like, well, in what scenario is that the only option? Like, why can't you be right and be kind? And you don't choose to be right. Like, you either are right or you're not. Like, there's so many things wrong with this phrase it's just dumb. Like, either you are objectively right or you're not objectively right. Only those two things really exist at the end of the day. And then you can start playing around. I mean, you can make it more muddy if you wanted to. You can start playing around with the definitions of what is right and what's wrong, or what's not right, and what is the truth and what isn't, and can it be objective, or like where's the room for emotional, and how does that verse against logic and reasoning? It's obviously very situational, which is exactly what's wrong with this stupid quote. Like, that's the thing, is it's very situational. You can be right and you can be kind. And there's different scenarios, and like this is just a standalone blanket statement as a faux inspirational positive quote that someone put out there. And it's not like I haven't seen things like this before. I see them all the time, and they make me cringe. But it just came to my attention today, and I was like, yeah, I know what I'm going to be talking about today, because this is what makes, I don't know, this is that thing where I still don't think we've talked about ignorance is bliss yet. And that'll be a big conversation, I imagine, because things like this will fit under that umbrella. Because it's just, I would rather, feel the reality most days or whatever than not. Like, I would rather know what's real than have like this fake, positive, optimistic outlook on things if that's not what the situation in reality requires. And then obviously now we can talk about reality and perception as reality and all that stuff, but we won't get into that whole rabbit hole. It's just really annoying. It's just one of those things, and it doesn't have to be annoying. I know that I'm annoying by saying that it's annoying to some people. It's like, well, whatever, who cares? Just whatever. But I don't know. It's just one of those. It's just people thinking that they're inspirational and magical and whatever else. I don't know why. It just annoys me. It just does, and it probably always will. How people can think that they're saying something. Like, this thing that you're saying isn't a thing. Like, it's a thing maybe kind of barely in very few circumstances, but you're speaking in such a broad way that it's like, oh, any time that I'm given the choice where I could either be right or I can be kind, I should always be kind. And like I said, there's many things wrong with this whole thing, and one is that you could be both in a lot of scenarios, and other times that, like, that's not the only choices that you're left with, so why do you have to pick one? But let's say it was an argument, and it's like, oh, well, you could choose to let this person know that you are right in the argument, but apparently if you let them keep thinking that they're right when in fact they're wrong, if this is a factual thing, an objective truth, then, I mean, if there is such a thing, and there's caveats to everything. The more I talk, the more I have conversations, the more I learn that, and the more annoying it gets too. But if there is an objective truth as much as there can be, and they are wrong, why is it kind to let them be wrong? Is one aspect of looking at this. Why is that the kind thing to do? Because you can tell them that they're wrong and that you are right in a kind way, and be like, oh, actually, like, whatever. You provide the evidence that lets them know, like, actually, you are correct. And I don't think that has to be an act of maliciousness or an act of, hatred or a negative act, right? It's all very situational, because you could make it, a thing where you're like teasing them and making fun of them and calling them stupid because they're wrong and you're right. Like, but that's not the way it needs to be. And just simply letting someone know that they're not right in this scenario, that could easily be an act of care. That could be the kind thing to do. Like, this could be, there's so many scenarios. I just thought of one. I'm going to be branching off all over the place here. Again, this is like an old school conversation. No notes, no prep work, just kind of jumping into it based off of like this line that was shared with me earlier. But I'm recalling a story of an ex-girlfriend that I had, and I remember that she had a friend, whatever, her and a bunch of friends went on a road trip, and their friend was not a good driver. And they were on a road trip that was in Saskatchewan, and they were driving on the highway, and they didn't want their one friend to, like, the one friend wanted to drive, and it was not that person's vehicle. I'm just going to give this friend a name, and let's call the friend Katie. So Katie wanted to drive. It was not Katie's vehicle, and they had been in this scenario before, all these friends, the 4 friends, and they know that Katie's not a good driver, but apparently Katie would get upset if she wasn't allowed to drive, so they just let her drive. One of the examples that was given to me about why she's not a good driver and things that she had done in the past and things that she did on this road trip too was that on the highway she would be passing people on hills. If you've done a lot of highway driving in parts where there are hills or whatever, you know that this is horrible practice, because you can't pass somebody. You're in the oncoming, passing somebody when there's only 2 lanes, right? 1 lane this way, 1 lane going this way, like, that's it. It's not like a 4-lane highway and everyone's going in the same direction and it's separate from the other people going in the opposite direction. No, we're talking about like a single lane going in that direction, a single lane going this direction. Therefore, you have to go into oncoming traffic in order to pass somebody. There's, places where that's legal and that's not on a hill. Besides it being incredibly unsafe, and you can't see what is coming on the other side. If you're at the crest of this hill, right, someone could just be driving and then that's it. Everyone's dead. Thanks. Like, there's breaks in the road. Like, there's lines that are dotted lines, basically, where the center line breaks so that it lets you know this is a safe area to pass. You can pass people here. They don't have those on hills for that exact reason. You can't pass people on hills. It's like, I lost my mind when I heard this. I was like, how could you let them do that then? You know that this is what they're like. Why would you let them? I was like, well, because, she would just make a big fuss and it would just be just easier this way. I'm like, oh, so you dead is easier? Like, that's a real reality. Like, how many cars are there on the road? How many, like, it's just ridiculous. And to me, that's a really similar thing. That could be like, what if somebody being wrong costs you your life? You know what I mean? Like, what? Like, first of all, you saying that they're wrong doesn't have to be unkind, but if apparently it's unkind or if they take offense to it, someone taking offense doesn't mean you're being unkind. Like, there are things that are objective and there's things that are subjective, and sometimes you being really polite can be an objective thing. Being like, oh, hey, excuse me, actually, like, if you're super, super polite and you don't have a tone in your voice or whatever, like, you can be objectively kind to people, and if they take offense to it just because they're being told they're wrong, that's on them. Your action was not unkind, right? And there's like times that you can have your motivation can be kind, but your delivery isn't kind. But I'm just talking about if everything you do, your communication is kind and your motives are kind, like you're trying to tell someone, like, what if that person was ignorant to the fact that they shouldn't pass on hills, they didn't understand it, so you were kindly like, hey, this thing you just did was actually like really dangerous and therefore a wrong action that you shouldn't have done. Do you realize that you can't see oncoming traffic when you're on this side of the hill and you don't know what's on this side of the hill? And then, like, there's ways that you could have that conversation that would just be polite. And if they take offense to it because you're telling them what to do or how to drive or whatever, then that's on them. But I'm not going to die over it. Like, I'd rather get out of a car than be in a vehicle or something like that. That's just me because I value my life a little bit. Yeah, so that's one scenario where it's like, what if you had, I mean, I don't think you ever have to be unkind just to tell someone that they're wrong either. I don't think that scenario is like, exists. Like, either yeah. Again, if someone takes offense to it, that's on them. If they think you're being unkind when you're not, you could be, it's not all subjective. Like, you're just objectively being polite and kind. Yeah, that's one scenario where it's like, no, sometimes you need to tell people that you're right. Like, that just has to happen. I mean, like if you're raising children or you're trying to teach someone something, whether it be in a school setting, academic setting, informal teaching, whatever. If you're trying to teach someone something, you're doing something the wrong way. Like I don't know. It's just a dumb quote. It just doesn't make any sense because you can teach someone to do something right without being unkind. So, in what scenario are you faced with that you have to either you have to be kind by letting them be wrong? Like, the more I'm deconstructing this, the more confused I'm getting, and the more stupid it is. Because I don't even know why I'm having a conversation about it. That's how I feel. I feel like I should just scrap this whole thing and have a whole different conversation. There's a big problem with these stupid, basic, one-dimensional, flat, faux, pseudo, optimistic, positive, inspirational garbage quotes. Because so many people are like, oh, yay, like positivity and whatever. It's like, no, there's not. No, why don't we use our heads? Like, the fact that I am talking about this in the way I'm talking about it means I'm being unkind or whatever. This is just how I talk about things like this, I guess, and that's just the way it is. I can have a different approach. I don't think I'm being unkind. Well, I don't know. Saying stuff like that is garbage, I guess, is unkind. But it's garbage in the fact that I don't think it actually helps anybody. And that's where we get into like, well, if people think that it helps them, then it helps them. But I mean, like, perpetuating this type of faux positivity, I don't think is helpful. Because if someone is in an argument or something like that, or if they're trying to be kind, I don't know. That's like, I mean, it's the same thing. I would just rather the truth. It's like somebody, you've got a crush on someone, and instead of telling you that, you know, they're just not that into you, you're not their type physically, or maybe they don't feel chemistry with you, or they don't feel a connection or compatibility with you. You can say those things in a kind way, because not being compatible with someone or not having chemistry or not being attracted to them isn't an unkind gesture. That's just life. You're not attracted to every single person you see or hang out with or whatever the case is. So, but rather than say that truth, some people just say, oh, actually, I'm just not looking to have a boyfriend right now, and the next day they have a boyfriend. Or, you know, or they lie about like, oh, actually, I already have a boyfriend, and then the next day you see them on some online dating site, or you find out that they're single, or whatever, right? Like, the fact that they would have to lie to you, like that, people often say like, oh, I was just trying to be nice. And I don't understand how that's nice. If the person can't receive the news that they're not wanted or desired by you, and they take offense to it, that's their problem. Like, that's just, yeah, that's on them. But then again, but now you've made it on you, because you were trying to be nice. Trying to be nice is stupid. Trying to be nice in scenarios like that are stupid, because it's not nice to anybody. It's like lying to someone about it, and then the potential that they find out, and if they do find out, that might make them upset. Like, I've heard the argument before that some people, I mean, that women specifically have been maybe afraid to tell men the truth, that they're not compatible or they're just not interested in them, and so they'd rather say something else, like, oh, I'm not looking, or I already have a boyfriend, or whatever, because they feel like that person might get offended by saying, you know, you're just not my cup of tea. But I understand that, but I really feel that they would get more upset if they find out you lied about it. That's, I don't know. I've been in scenarios where I've felt like someone has lied to me about the same thing, but like, oh, okay, I thought you weren't looking to get into a relationship, so why are you even on this website right now? Or things similar to that. Anyway, yeah, I just think that being nice just for nice sake, like, being, like, in that circumstance, being nice or being kind or whatever you want to call it, to me it's the opposite, and you're just making it more convenient for yourself. I think it's a very selfish act. And I think in some ways that would be the same thing as like, oh, when in a situation where you could just let someone be wrong and you don't want to argue with them, that's like self-preservation. And this is one of the things I remember saying that was, I mean, it was said and I agreed to it in the discussion, was that like, oh, let's say you're sitting with a student and they say something, and you're like, oh, actually, no, that's not really what it is. That's wrong. And it's not like an academic thing. It's not something they need for a test. Someone's just telling you a story. I mean, in this circumstance, like I said, it was a student, so someone just removed from you, but they're like in your care, kind of. And you can just tell them like, oh, actually, no, it's this thing. And they're like, nope, it's not. It's this. Well, at that point, sometimes the best thing to do is just stop, because why? It's like the picking your battles thing, right? But that's like, admittedly, I've done that, and that's like a selfish act, because I'm like, there's no need for me to keep going and going and going, and I've already told them that they're wrong, and I've said it in a way, and I presented them with the evidence one time, and whatever. I could go further and further and further with it, maybe so they couldn't refute the evidence, but it's going to take a lot of time, and like, I'm not really thinking about how they'll feel, because if they feel offended, that's their fault. Like, they need to get over that stuff. If they feel upset or whatever by the fact that they were wrong and they feel dumb, okay, well, that's how we learn things, right? Like, from an educational aspect, people are wrong all the time, and this is how we learn things, by finding out ourselves that we did something in a way we didn't like and we want to change it and do better, or someone telling us, oh, actually, that's the wrong answer, this is how you get the right answer, let me teach you the process, or just let me teach you critical thinking, or whatever. But I really think of it from a selfish aspect on my own end of being like, I don't want to waste my time trying to go through and tell this person how they're wrong about this simple thing that doesn't really matter. If they want to think that right now, eventually the truth will get to them. Like, I've done that before, because it's not worth it. So I think if that's what the person is trying to say, like, pick your battles, okay, yeah, pick your battles. You know, like, that's a whole different thing. But that statement of, well, in any circumstance where you could be right or be kind, you know, always choose kind. Like, being right sometimes is necessary. Being right sometimes can save a life, like, in many different ways. And if for some reason the person won't listen to you when you are being kind, but if you're unkind, they'll listen, and that helps, you know, preserve your life, or make the situation what it needs to be, or you just need to get through to them because it's very important for whatever the scenario is, being unkind is worth it then. Like, being unkind would totally be worth being right. Not for some, like, sense of pride, but for the fact that, okay, now this person has the facts, and now we can move on, and now we can do whatever this scenario requires of us, and we can get moving, and, like, you know, whatever the scenario may be. It doesn't always have to be as extreme as saving a life. But sometimes it's just necessary to do. It's like, no, I need you to be on the same page as me so we can plan this trip together. And you think that this location or this time or whatever is this thing, but it's not this thing. You're just not listening to me. And like, I don't really think on my journey of trying to be kinder and more patient, I don't think there is a scenario where you have to yell at someone, where you have to call them names, or where you have to be unkind for them to listen to you. Now, there's many different approaches of communication where you can be kind and have someone listen to you, and you can impart the correct information to them or challenge them in a polite way. I feel like I strayed a little bit with the whole thing about being nice, because I think that's like a whole different subject. So maybe I don't know what this video is going to be called now. But yeah, being nice. I think a lot of the time, once people say, "Oh, I was just being nice," by, you know, complimenting someone that I didn't want to compliment, or I didn't really think they looked good, or I don't know, there's consequences to those types of actions, right? Like, someone thinks something that is not true, and I know that I'm on the very extreme end of things where I don't like that. I was having a discussion the other day that is relevant, I didn't really see the link until right now, but where sometimes, because of the way that I, you know, dress or style myself and wear jewelry and paint my nails or what have you, sometimes people think I'm gay, and I am not gay, and there's nothing wrong with being gay, shout out to Seinfeld, but I don't want someone to believe that I'm something I'm not, because I'm just not that thing. Like, I've never gone out of my way to just, like, aggressively correct someone, you know, and in some cases I've never corrected people that I think probably assumed I was in the LGBTQ plus community, but, you know, I've just left it alone, or yeah, I don't know, I've just never felt the need to aggressively correct them. But it does bother me, and it's not because being gay is a bad thing, or that I would be offended, or nothing like that. It's just the fact that it's just not the truth, and I would rather them know the truth and believe the truth and whatever else. So that's why I'm just like, well, I would just rather them do that. Like, I'm on the extreme end of, like, even if the truth doesn't matter, sometimes I still want it, And so yes, I have to pick and choose my battles too. But it's like that whole thing of like, oh, whatever. There are consequences. Like if someone did think I was gay, and I had an opportunity to correct them, and I just didn't. Like, why wouldn't I? I should. But I mean, in scenarios where maybe you compliment somebody, or someone's like, oh, how do I look? And you're just like, not great. Like, you look a little rough. Like, you just get some sleep last night, or like your hair is kind of a mess, or whatever. Like, someone's asking you for a reason. Maybe they want a genuine response. If they don't want a genuine response, that's on them. Then they're not cool. Like, that's not a cool thing to do. Don't ask me a question if you don't want an honest answer, right? Like, if you need reassurance, then like, if you only want positive feedback, I mean, first of all, that's just not a person that I really want to talk to anyway. Like, if you only want positive reinforcement all the time, or just in the scenario where you're asking me a question, if you don't want me to actually tell you how I feel, like, I've had that happen before too, where someone asked me about like their art, and I was like really surprised they asked me, because I thought they already knew that I wasn't really a fan. And then I was like, oh, you actually want me to tell you what I think? And they were like, no, not really. Okay, because you think I'm going to say something negative, now you don't want to know what I think? Don't ask me then. Like, that is on them. You know, if you come correct with the truth, and you do it in a way that is polite and patient and kind or loving or whatever, or neutral, even if you come at the truth neutral, like, you shouldn't be punished for that. That shouldn't be a thing. Like, the person who is requesting the information from you, or needs the information, or needs to be corrected, or whatever it is, if they are told the truth and they can't handle that, and they get upset, that is on them. That it is not your responsibility, and if they lash out at you for that, then that's on them. Like, that is a fault of theirs. Again, there are times where you can present the truth in a unkind way, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not just saying, well, it's the truth, so that's the thing. Like, there's not always a need for truth either. You don't need to tell the truth unfiltered without a request. You know, like, oh man, you look like crap today. Like, well, that person didn't ask me how they looked. Like, I didn't need to say that. It's just a completely negative comment. For what reason? To make myself feel better? Or you know what I mean? Like, by bringing someone else down. Like, I'm talking about scenarios where you're engaged in a situation where that person needs to know, either they're requesting the information from you, or you're in dialogue with them, and they need to know that they are not right, or maybe it's not a need, right? It's just like, oh, actually, you know, that fact, I don't know, because then they go off telling other. That's dangerous too. What if they go around? It's so situational. That's the point. I was going to say, what if they go around, you know, spouting off this fact that isn't true, and then more people believe that fact, and sometimes it just won't matter. But I mean, it also just breeds a culture of ignorance and stupidity and whatever else, because that person, you don't even try to challenge them, maybe, right? Like, I don't know. That's the thing. It's very situational, and so that quote to me is just dead and does not ring true whatsoever. It's just a non-thing. Like, I don't think you're faced with a scenario where you have to be right or be kind. You can be right and kind. And again, either you're right or you're not right. Like, telling someone you're right is what they're talking about. Like, if you're in a situation where you don't have to tell someone you're right, or like it's kind to let them be wrong. I don't know. What a convoluted mess. What a mess. I'm going in a spiral, and that's what I have for today. So, yeah, you can be kind and right at the same time, and you can express those things in a positive way, and there shouldn't be a choice. You shouldn't be forced in a position ever where you're having to choose from being right or being kind. Okay, anyway, that's it for me. We'll see you at another time.